Hello, beautiful dancer, and welcome for another episode of A Cup of Tea, which is our weekly conversation for creative, soulful, and respectful fusion belly dance. I'm Lamia Barbara, your host, and I'm so happy that you are here today. Today's conversation is an interview with Kamrah. Kamrah is a performer, a teacher, a belly dancer, and Chicago's first trans-masculine belly dancer. He has performed in fusion, American cabaret, Lebanese, Egyptian raqs sharqi since 2001, and is very well known for his creativity, theatricality, and isolation. And today's conversation is going to be very juicy and packed with a lot of valuable tips from Kamrah. Kamrah is going to share with us his story in belly dance, how he came into belly dance, how belly dance came to his life, and then he will give us inspiration on how to define core fusion, what he says is core fusion, and this is so interesting, and just go check that because it's going to be super interesting. And then he's going to give the community, the whole of the community, a super valuable insight, what he sees ahead and what his suggestion about the fusion community, for the fusion community and the fusion teachers. So I know you will love this conversation today. Enjoy, have your cup of tea or coffee ready. I really hope that gods of technology are going to be with us today.
If we need to, I am on my phone, but I can switch to my computer. It's just my computer was set up in a different space. And so I was like, well, let me just go ahead and use my phone. So if something goes wrong, we can figure it out.
Yeah. You know, we're always adapting with the situation because gods of technology. So thank you so much for being here. I have my tea here to enjoy with you. And thank you for being here, Kamrah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Are you from your Arcanum dance studio?
Actually, this is my home studio. So I turned my living room. I have a condo. I turned my living room into a dance space. So I don't have a place to sit and watch TV, but I have a place to dance.
Yeah, I think it's something a lot of us dancers, we have in common. Like, I don't have a TV, but I managed to carve my own little dance space from my living room.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. We never met, but I was like stalking you through your videos for a little bit now, for at least a couple of years. And I have my questions here because my brain is like, okay, I'm gonna go with the schedule. But my first question is always the same for all of my guests, and it's gonna be, how did you start in dance? It's always nice to talk about how we start, also because we see performances, maybe videos, we are inspired by all of these beautiful dancers, but we don't know their story. And I think it's so beautiful to share the story behind the scenes. So if you want to tell your story with dance.
Sure, absolutely. I'll try to condense it down. But when I was in college, I had some health issues that made it really difficult for me to exercise. It made me actually difficult for me to leave the house at all. And so I needed some sort of exercise program or something that was really low, excuse me, low impact, or that wasn't like running. It's like, because I had they thought it was asthma, like very severe asthma, but it was not. So, but anyway, so like doing things like running and on treadmills and stuff like that was completely out of the question. And so a friend of mine and I were kind of in a similar situation. And so we went and found belly dance VHS tapes. That's how long ago this was. We found but they were on sale. So because they were, like the DVDs were coming in. So they were trying to get rid of their VHS tapes. And it was Vina and Nina, the belly dance twins. So I started with their videos, ended up really, really loving the dance. And so I joined, when I moved to Arizona, I joined a teacher there and started to take classes from her. She did American Cabaret style. So it was very, it was very Suhaila influenced. I didn't know it at the time, but she was really, really Suhaila influenced, really influenced by Lebanese styles. So she would show us these Lebanese dancers and say, dance just like this. And it was always the Lebanese style dancers. And so I loved it, but it was just kind of like this weird hobby that I had. It wasn't like anything I took very seriously. I didn't practice at all. It was just kind of like, yeah, I just do it so that I get out of the house and I get a little exercise. But then I found Fusion.
There you go.
Yeah. I don't remember who it was, unfortunately, but someone in my hearing, and it was at an event that we were doing, said Gothic belly dance. And I was like,
what
you can
the?
do that? I didn't know that that was possible. So then I started researching, like Gothic belly dance. So I found like Tempest and Ashra and Ariella, and all of those. And so I found them and was just like, oh my God, I have to do this. And then I came around like the other way after I found like Ashra and Tempest and all of them. Then I found Rachel and Zoe and started studying a lot more seriously. And then just the last part of it, that kind of informed my love back towards the original style, so the American Cabaret and the Lebanese style. And so now I still do both. Fusion's kind of my first real love, but I also still do love like rock sharky and dance oriental and all that. So so the fusion kind of informed going back to the my original style. Sorry, I have a
Yeah.
cat.
Oh, wow. What's her? It's a her or a his? I don't know. What's his name?
This is Roca. She's my very fluffy baby.
Oh my
So
God.
I have two. The other one, she might wander in a moment, but we'll see. She's still in bed.
Oh, yes, of course. She's a cat, so.
Yes, and it's like 8 a.m. here, so it's like she's still in bed. She'll be in bed until like 9:30.
Yeah, it's so perfect. Wow, such an interesting story you have. So you went into cabaret and Lebanese, and then you went to fusion, and then went back into Raksharki and all of the classical styles. It's such a beautiful story, um, and also you mentioned Ashara, which is now certified Suhaila Salimpur teacher. So again, it's all interconnected, right?
It was so funny because my first teacher was very much influenced by Suhaila. She would show us videos of Suhaila and be like, dance just like her. This is how I want you to dance. This is what I want you to look like. And so I had known of Suhaila for a really long time. And then when I started to get into fusion, of course, the first DVD that I got was Ashra. So she goes by Abby now, Abigail. But I had gotten her DVD, her Modern Fusion Technique DVD. And so I did that all the time. Every day I did that DVD, only to find out much later that that was her Suhaila level 3 project. So all of that technique was Suhaila technique. So I've been a Suhaila style dancer my entire career without knowing it until obviously more recently, and then did my own certifications.
Yeah, I think Suhaila, yeah, we're gonna go from here into the second question, but I think we might say that Suhaila hugely influenced what it's fusion, like she was one of the major influencers, but also the major brains behind the idea of connecting, let's call it Menhat inspired movement or belly dance with locking technique. She did all of that stuff that we went crazy about in the community. So my second question is actually this: what would you identify made you fall in love with belly dance? You already mentioned something about Gothic belly dance, so you might want to say something about that. But also, if you can identify one or two or as many as you want key features of what is fusion, if you can identify that, because it's so like such an umbrella term, but if you maybe have a few insights about that.
Sure, yeah. So for me, fusion technique, I kind of talk about like core fusion. So Suhaila started, adding in like popping and locking and all of that stuff in with her fusion. And, the idea of fusion is that you take two or more things and smush them together and create something new out of the fusion of the two. And so that means you need to have like two different things that you're fusing together, right? And so a lot of people have fused like ballet in with rock sharky, and that's where a lot of like American cabaret technique comes from. So there's like this fusion of two things coming together. But in belly dance fusion, because we've fused so many things together, and then dancers like Zoe and Rachel have kind of codified their movement vocabulary, I call that a kind of a core fusion style. So instead of being an actual fusion of two things that have come together, it's now a style of its own that has its own kind of vocabulary, its own stylization, and so for me, that core fusion are the things that like Suhaila teaches in her. So there's the Jamila path, and then there's the Suhaila path. So the extreme isolation. So Suhaila does all of that. Everything is isolated. All of the drills, all the glute stuff. Everyone knows all the glute drills with Suhaila. They know if they take classes with me, they're also going to get glute drills. So, and that comes straight from Suhaila. And so I feel like that extreme amount of isolation, not just of the body, but also, like arm isolations, like doing like flam. So Zoe does a lot of the flam stuff with the arms, like the da-da, like that. So the extreme isolation of muscle contractions. My partner, Drake, calls it, he calls himself being a muscle micromanager. So, which I think is absolutely perfect. I love that. I want to steal it so bad. And I feel like that's kind of what core fusion is really about, is that the extreme isolation of different muscle contractions. And because I feel like a lot of people would say it's, oh, you're just doing belly dance to like Western music. But I feel like a lot of fusion artists now are really embracing like Arabic trap music. And there's a lot of like Arabic heavy metal, stuff like that. So it's not just the music that informs it, although that is an important aspect of it. I think it's also just the type of movement vocabulary that you have, that you're doing. And so I've started labeling that kind of like Suhaila, Zoe, Rachel stylization core fusion, and then teaching it that way, and then adding in other stuff. So if I want to fuse other things with it, if I want to be like, okay, this is going to be a ballet fusion, then I can take my core fusion and add ballet to it. Or I can take my core fusion and add, like more hip hop to it or something, and make it of a more, not just saying like, oh, I'm fusing belly dance, rock sharky with hip hop. I'm fusing fusion with hip hop. And so I do it kind of that way instead, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfectly sense in it. That actually, it's like a perfect map in my brain right now. What you're mentioning, it's just perfect because, as you said, it's not just belly dance on Western music. There is an actual stylization and it's an actual style, which you call it core fusion. I was talking with another amazing dancer a few weeks ago, Antonella Shaina, and she was talking about these. She had like these two, let's say, labels. One is what she called also known as back in the days tribal fusion, which is like what was gone before the pandemic, before all of that. And this is an actual style. It's probably what you refer to as the core fusion technique. And it's there, and then you have all the different stylization. You can have so many kind of fusion that goes into the umbrella term, but that core style, it's there. It's like if you see Mardi Love video, if you see Zoe Jake's video, you can see that you have that Suhaila influence, you have that urban tribal influence, all good stuff.
Yeah,
It's there.
absolutely. And that's part of why I started calling it like core fusion, because everyone, when we use the label tribal fusion, everyone kind of knew that that was its own like distinct style. And so out of respect, not using the tribal label anymore. So it was just, it felt too general to just say, oh, I do fusion dance. Well, what do you fuse? And so, like belly dance fusion, but then people are kind of like, well, what do you mean by belly dance fusion? What are you fusing to belly dance? And it's like, well, it's kind of its own thing. So I had this idea of calling it core fusion, and then talking about like, well, you can fuse to core fusion other things, but core fusion itself has been influenced by dancers, because Rachel has, and Zoe also have a lot of like Bharatanatyam and other Indian styles and flamenco and all of that. But it's all just kind of been codified in one thing. And it's just kind of like, it's no longer a fusion. It's more of its own sort of thing now. Like everyone knows, if you're going to do something like this, that originally that came from flamenco, right? But it just is an arm pathway now in fusion. So,
Yeah,
or
totally.
fusion was kind of the best way to describe that.
Yeah. And coming back to the Gothic belly dance, what do
Yeah.
you can say, okay, this is so difficult, I think. How can you explain what makes you fall in love? You just fall in love. But if you can maybe say or define what made you, what inspired you first about this possibility, what would that be?
So I've been a goth my whole life, pretty much. I started listening to bands like The Cure and Nine Inch Nails and all of that, back when I was in high school. The grunge era was in full swing, and I liked a lot of that stuff. And I love Middle Eastern music. Like there are some pieces of Middle Eastern music that absolutely make me cry, that move me, that I just absolutely love. Um, but there was always a little bit of a disconnect between, like I didn't grow up hearing some of these songs. And while they move me now, they weren't things that I grew up listening to. I didn't have that emotional connection to, but I did have that emotional connection to a lot of, heavy metal and gothic music and stuff like that. The kind of the goth lifestyle, basically. And so when I heard that term Gothic belly dance, I was like, I can like dance to the music that I really, really love, that I have this emotional connection to. And, for me, that was an artistic outlet that I didn't think that I was going to have access to, because, it was like, my first teacher was very much of the idea that fusion was not belly dance, and that fusion shouldn't be called belly dance, and and didn't really respect a lot of the fusion dancers. I remember, this is, sorry, side note, we went to one of the Serpent Rouge shows as a group, and she was like,
Wow.
that was very lovely, but that wasn't belly dance. So so yeah, I mean, everyone has their opinion. It's fine. Um, but for me, it was like I wanted to have a creative outlet in dance that I didn't feel like I had when I was just dancing to Middle Eastern music. And so being able to connect my dance to a style of music that was very personal to me was amazing. And then to see all these dancers dancing to music that I absolutely loved, and seeing them like the different style, because the main reason why I didn't take belly dance very seriously when I started was because I was like, well, first of all, I was before I transitioned, and so I'm like, I would never wear that. I didn't want to be caught dead in the costumes that they were wearing. I didn't like it at all, but I loved the fusion costumes.
Hmm.
So the costuming appealed to me, the music appealed to me. When I first heard that Gothic belly dance term, I literally, and I mean literally, I literally did not sleep for 2 days, because
What?
I would lay. I mean, it sounds horrible, but I would lay in bed going, oh my God, I could dance to this. And then I want to do this. And then this is how I want to train. And I want my body
It's
to look
not
like this. So
horrible.
what we're
It's
doing.
so sweet. So sweet.
Yeah. So it was just a major, I mean, that was what propelled me into wanting to be a professional, because I wanted to actually dance this way. I wanted to dance on stage that way. I wanted to costume myself. I wanted to do that. So Gothic belly dance, that was the, I guess it's all their fault of why all of this happened.
Thank you, goddesses and gods of Gothic belly dance, for bringing Kamrah to life.
Yes. Yeah. I told Abby, so I was very lucky to teach at a couple of Tempest's festivals, so Waking Persephone, which was like dream come true for me. I got to meet Tempest and teach at her festival. And then I actually roomed with Abby, and I was like, I am just going to have to be a complete fanboy for just a second. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, at her. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm good. But I had to tell her like how much her style meant to me and all that. And another little anecdote, so Abby went, she does more rock sharky now. She doesn't really do a fusion that much anymore. She sold a lot of her fusion costuming, and I got her belt from the DVD. So
Oh, life goes full circle.
yes. I was like, oh, yay. So like, like making my little baby Gothic belly dancer dreams come true.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so sweet, actually. It's not horrible at all. And my not actually my first, but my second teacher was a very like Egyptian, let's say, she was really much into Egyptian dance because she's also from Egypt. So she was like only Egyptian music and Egyptian, and that was perfectly beautiful. I loved it. And it was just an amazing journey for me. But she was like your teacher. She was like, no, this fusion thing, it's not belly dance. It's just an American thing. Just leave it there, you know? And I was like, oh, but I love it. Why I cannot? And I was holding this inside of me for so long. I was like, oh, I love it. And then at some point, I just, okay, I have to do this. I didn't sleep. I was not like you, like, not sleeping for 2 days, but it was like months and months of like, oh my God, I want to do this. I really want to. And it's just so beautiful when you give yourself the permission to just tap into your creativity and into your inspiration. So I think,
Absolutely. Yeah.
wow. And talking about inspiration and creativity, so my next question for you: um, how how do you create? In the sense, where do you find your inspiration? What's your main source when you want to create a choreography? When you want to create a costume? Every one of us has a different source. Someone comes from the music, someone comes from a piece of costume, someone comes from an idea. What's your gateway?
Sure. So for me, it's always the music. The music comes first, and so I have like Spotify to help me like find new music. I'm the annoying person during class that's like Shazamming every song that like whenever I'm in class with Zoe, I'm like, what song is this? What song is this? So the music, something will inspire me in the music, and then that will help me create the choreography. So if I don't connect to the music, it's really difficult for me to do a choreography or even improvise too. I'm most of what I do is improvisation. I say about like 90% of my performances are improv. um, and so I have to be inspired in the moment, of course, while I'm listening to the song, while I'm dancing, in order to be able to do the song any justice. And so I have to really have that emotional connection to it. It has to be something that I really enjoy. So music really informs my choreographies. And, so like Gothic music, all that. The Cure is my absolute favorite band ever.
Yes,
So
I love
I
it.
know. I got to see them in concert in their most recent tour, and it was amazing. But
So lucky.
I know. I dragged Drake to it, which he actually liked. So that was good. um, but yeah, so that the connection to the music, but there is of course Middle Eastern music that I connect to as well. There are some songs that just, like Shashkin, like, I can't not dance to that song. If it's going to play, I'm going to be dancing to it. So it just depends on the song and, how it hits me and emotionally how I connect to it. So music is how I really find my inspiration for my choreographies and for my improv. For costuming, it's a lot harder because the male dancer, it's really actually difficult to find costumes that work for us, that are off the rack, basically. So, a female dancer can go to like Dalal or, even to Egypt and be like, this costume, I'll take it. And then it fits them and they walk away with a costume. We can't do that.
Yeah.
So it makes it really difficult to do costuming. And so we end up having to make our own costuming. And so then that's informed by what we're capable of actually making.
Yeah.
So if you're not a really good costumer, then you're just kind of stuck. So for me, I'm lucky Drake is really good at costuming. So he's been doing a lot of my costumes recently. I'm really good at making belts. That's about it. So don't ask me to make skirts or pants or anything like that. I can do it, but it's not going to turn out very well. So I make my own belts a lot of the time. And then, like everything, costuming goes through trends. And so I kind of like to look at what trends are happening, what's in fashion. So everyone now uses like the harem, or the pantaloons, or what we call like the harem pants with the big cutouts on the side.
Yes.
So so I've been, like collecting those. And so things that are, the trends, kind of follow the trends a little bit. I'm a little bit against that because the alternative person in me, like the gothic person, is like, ew, I don't want to follow trends. But then also like I like a lot of the trends, so it's fine.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I am guilty of having at least a couple of those harem pants too. So
Yeah.
I think it's cool.
Yes. Yep. And I have a pair of pants that have huge cutouts, and they're so big I actually have to be careful with the costuming I have underneath them. So there's been a couple of times where I was like, oh, that was not the right choice for that piece, but that's fine. So for costuming, it's mainly just, like what can I find, in separates. So like finding a full costume isn't going to really work for me because I have no reason to use the bra.
Yeah.
And so like, do I really want to spend all that money on a costume that I can only use half of? And, a lot of people are like, oh, well, you can just, like repurpose the bra, but that is, Drake, I watched Drake do that, and that is not a very viable option for most people. Deconstructing those bras is not easy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like what I can find, what I can make on my own. What can I repurpose from other things? So sometimes I'll get gifted costumes, and I'm like, okay, what can I like? How can I repurpose this? So it's kind of cobbled together, unfortunately, for costuming, but that's kind of just part of the way that it is for men. And I know there's been some people who are like, well, you just kind of have to work with it, and it's like, yep, you kind of just have to work with what you get and put together things that you like, pieces that mean something to you, and then just kind of cobble it together. And it actually makes me think, Mariah Chappell once described herself as like the spider, because she'll like pull in all this stuff like in a web and then weave it together into a costume. And I feel that's kind of what I have to do. It's like I'll take, a pair of pants from this designer and a belt from this designer, or a belt of my own, and then, like, okay, I have a body chain and maybe I can pull in this vest or like a crop top that I can, like repurpose for something, or like, oh, this is like a wedding shawl that I can cut up and, create something else out of. And so I just feel like this sort of spider just pulling in all my costuming and, finding things that just kind of work together somehow.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me, and that's what I do too. I'm also a spider. I didn't know that I was a spider. That's actually what I do. I usually open my, let's say, my closet. I don't have a closet with the costumes. I just have a couple of boxes with a lot of my costumes all together, and I just open them on the floor and I create patterns every time. I just put them together differently, and
Mhm.
I don't usually work with a set costume that you buy, which is that one. I do a spider thing too. I didn't know that, but I love it. So thank you for creating this new reality.
Sure. Yeah, you're welcome.
And thanks to Moraya to creating that too. Yeah, I never thought about the idea of having this difference when you're a male. Of course, in the industry, mostly is for a female body, right? It's actually designed and thought for a specific female body. So even if you have another kind of body, it's going to be so different, right? So if you're a male, or if you have a body which is not conformed in the usual belly dancer shape,
Mhm.
then costuming becomes, I wouldn't say a problem, because I don't think problem is the right word. It's just another
Good job.
experience, definitely another experience. So thank you for
Yeah.
mentioning that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, for dancers who are larger. I have a number of friends who've, talked to me about costuming because we have similar issues, and that for, larger dancers, most costumers don't make costumes in their size. And so they have to special order things, which is more expensive a lot of times. And it's the same thing for me. I either have to eat the cost, like if there's a skirt I really want or something, I have to eat the cost and just get the bra anyway, and then just, not use it or whatever. And so that ends up being much more expensive for me to just buy a skirt, or I have to custom order things, which is much more expensive. There are designers, though, who will work with your measurements. I've had issues, though. There was it was not a belly dance costumer. She makes costumes for people who do like circus stuff.
Yeah.
And I wanted a really fancy like leotard, because there's a couple of events that I do where I need to be a lot more covered. Like even as a female belly dancer, they cover up a lot more in these events. So it's a little bit more family friendly. It's not, like going on TV with a bare chest. It's kind of a little unusual.
Mm.
They ask for more cover up. So I was trying to find more options for me that was a lot more covered up. And so it was like a leotard, but very fancy. It had, like holographic fabric, and it was rhinestoned and all that. And
Wow.
I had that dilemma when it was like, is this for a female body or a male body? And I'm like, well, technically it's for a male body, but I don't need the bottom half of it to be the way that it would be for other men.
Mm.
And so when I did that, she did cut it as though for like a cisgender man. And so it ended up fitting kind of weirdly, which thankfully is covered up by a pair of pants. So that's fine.
Okay.
But so it wasn't that bad. But it's even working with custom designers who don't understand what I need. That is another issue. Like tops, sometimes they always want to put darts in them, and I'm like, no, you don't need to put a dart in the top. So
Mm.
it's just a challenge to work with designers, because they assume, or they have patterns and they only work for one type of body. And so it's harder to kind of explain to them, like, no, I'm a belly dancer, but yes, I want to wear a skirt. I'm ordering a skirt from you, but the top doesn't need to be a bra, so it's just different.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for mentioning that, and thank you for spreading awareness also about around that. So maybe we can create a new wave of a new inspirational wave for, if there is someone who's doing costumes, to create a more like a queerness side of the shop, right?
Yes,
So that
that would
would
be
be
great.
it would be great. And this is your queer section, so thank you for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-mm. So yeah, I'm gonna jump into my last question, which is if you had like a vision for what is coming ahead for the community, where are we going, or what do you see ahead for the dance styles? And if you have any suggestion for the dancers of the community or the teachers.
Sure. Yeah. So I know a lot of people have been feeling that the belly dance, especially in the U.S. So I'm starting to kind of see how things are in the rest of the world, and of course I'm going to be moving to Portugal in the end of February. But in the U.S., the belly dance economy has been kind of slowly circling, going down. It's harder to get people in classes. It's harder. A lot of big events have been dying. So it's harder to have places to go to get instruction, workshops, like the big workshop weekends where it's like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday with 3 shows and vendors, like a dozen vendors and all of that are disappearing in the US. There aren't a lot left. And so a lot of us just feel that the belly dance economy is just disappearing in the US. And I know that this has happened before, but this seems to be kind of an extended. Um, and I really feel like there's a couple of reasons for that. And a lot of that has to do with sort of the social justice work that started to happen at the beginning of the pandemic, but that scared a lot of people away, and which is unfortunate, and because I feel like that sort of work is really important. So we need to be more aware of the dancers of origin, so a lot of us need to be taking classes and workshops and stuff and supporting dancers who are from the cultures of origin, and being really because the generation that's coming up and the generation that's coming up behind them, they are all very, very concerned with things like cultural appropriation, being inclusive, like all of that stuff is very, very important to them. And so excluding dancers of color, excluding dancers from, or, like not supporting dancers from the cultures of origin, all of that is like a known issue in belly dance. And then also the generation kind of behind everyone, they're a lot queerer than us. So they, identify as non-binary and trans more often, identify as gay more often. And I think belly dance, and I've had a couple of people take offense with what I'm about to say, and I want to say that this isn't meant to be mean. This is what younger people have told me, that how they perceive belly dance to be, where it seems to be just this kind of really appropriative thing that older white women do. And so
Hmm.
I'm just the messenger on that. I don't agree necessarily with that statement altogether. But that is what people have said to me, that is what their impression of belly dance is. And I think we need to change that impression. If we want belly dance to become more popular again, if we want the belly dance economy to improve, then we need to be more inclusive, and we need to show that we're doing the work to be more inclusive. We need to have a lot more dancers of color that are at like the A dance, like we all know who the A level dancers are. We know who the B and C, all that. We need to have more inclusive upper, more famous dancers who are getting the big gigs, going to all the big, dance events and that kind of thing. And then also showing that this is a dance that can be done by anyone. It's always been a dance that's been able to be done by anyone, but there's this idea that only women are allowed to do it, which my partner Drake has done. Part of his master's thesis was on debunking a lot of that history, and where that came from, and this kind of idea that it was a goddess dance and all that, which is all incorrect. So I feel like we need to kind of literally go back to the roots and show that this dance is something that everyone can do, that everyone has done since the beginning, and that queer people are welcome, trans people are welcome, being more inclusive in costuming, and like we just talked about, and then seeing the famous dancers who gets who goes on the workshop circuit and that kind of thing. And that's the work that I've been trying to do for myself, is showing that like you don't have to be a white woman in order to do this dance, and to be more inclusive and all that. And I think showing that, and showing the generations that are coming up, so like Gen Alpha, and then I think they just announced it was like Gen Omega or something like that. I don't know whatever
I'm a
the
little
next one
behind.
is. Uh, so it literally starts this year. So if we want belly dance to continue, we need to attract the younger crowd. And to do that, we have to be much more inclusive. We have to show our work, not just the talk. We have to show our work when it comes to inclusion, not being appropriative and that kind of stuff. And a lot of us have been doing that, the tribal, not using that terminology anymore. Being much more descriptive in how we talk about the dance, which is always evolving. So for a while there was the like Manat, so Middle Eastern, North African, all of those. But then some people are like, no, it should be Swana. And so we have to keep up with the terminology and not get offended when someone corrects us over terminology, especially if they are of that culture, and be like, oh, okay, I need to be presenting it this way. So kind of showing our work in that term, to be able to show people that we love this dance so much that we want it to continue, and so we will do whatever it is that we need to do in order to make sure that this dance continues. And so I feel like that's kind of the best way forward in terms of the belly dance economy as a whole. For teachers, because I know I get a lot of questions where people ask me, they're like, how can I be more inclusive in my classes? And
Mm.
so for teachers, I do offer kind of like a consultation. So if people want like more specific advice, I can give that to them. But using inclusive language, so instead of, and this happens on Facebook all the time in groups, they'll go into a group and address the group as, hi ladies.
Mm.
So even just adjusting your language to hi dancers, dancers is non-gendered. So that includes everybody. And it's a really, really easy, it's not like you have to change your entire, because I get these people that are like, how can I change my entire thing? It's like, it's really not that, it's not that much,
Yeah.
just use much more inclusive language. So instead of saying, hi ladies, say something like, hi dancers, hello students, anything like that, that is much more non-gendered will help in classes, online, that anything like that. Even if you think you have a room full of all women, you
You
may
don't
not.
know.
Yeah.
You
And
don't
so
know.
if there's a non-binary person in there and they feel uncomfortable being labeled as a lady, but they're pretty feminine presenting, it's like, I'm sure most people would be like, okay, well, fine, but you're starting off on the wrong foot with them. You're making them uncomfortable in the very first class. So why take that chance? So just use something like hi dancers, super easy switch. For costumers and stuff like that, being more inclusive in costuming, so that male dancers who are in troops have something that is of similar quality to the female dancers. I've seen
Mm.
before where teachers, and I don't want to like place blame, because I know some of it is just like you can't find stuff, but their female dancers will be in professional level costuming, something that they bought, like off Dalal or out of Egypt. And then their male dancer is wearing, a $10 hip scarf and a t-shirt.
Mm.
you know,
Why?
yeah. And so it gives this image that the male dancer is not taking it as seriously, or isn't as valued in the troupe, like that. So it's like you need to bring the male dancers up to the level of the female dancers in costuming, to show that they are just as an important part of the troupe as the female dancers are. And so that goes a long way. And I know that's like, I don't want to place the blame on any one person for that sort of thing, because that's a multi-problem, like there's multiple layers to that problem where it's hard to find costuming. It's hard to find costuming that fits. It's hard, like a lot of teachers don't know how to teach male dancers, even though like you don't really have to change anything. We all have the same muscles.
Yeah.
I actually got into an argument once on TikTok where someone said that, like, oh, the only reason why you can do this is because you were like born as a woman. And I'm like, oh, male dancers have the same muscles. And they went on like, how can you say men have the same anatomy? And I'm like, no, I didn't say anatomy. We have the same muscles. So we're all capable of doing the same muscle movements. It may look different because of, how your body is shaped, but the muscle movement is all the same. And so kind of deconstructing that idea that men can't dance, or have to be taught differently, or have to be manly in their movements. Like, what does that even mean? That was the heart. So sorry for the other side, but
no, but just go. It's so important.
Drake is my partner and we've been friends for a long time. And he actually has done 2 projects. He did one for his undergraduate and then one for his master's, talking about male dancers and our experience as dancers. And one of the things that he asked about was, what does like being masculine, or what does dancing masculine mean to you? And that was the hardest question. And it was just kind of like, I don't even know. Like, how do you answer that? What is a masculine movement, right?
Yeah. What does it mean? Is it like a bigger, strong?
Yeah. And so a lot of people had answered that, and it was just like stiffer, manlier. And so like there was no real way to describe that. And so, I know everyone's going to be like, oh God. So to just kind of do away with that whole idea altogether and be like, a male dancer doesn't necessarily have to dance in any specific masculine way. Because he's a male dancer, he's going to be dancing masculinely. That's just kind of the default. So you don't have to adjust your teaching methods. You don't have to, like do anything different for the male dancer. You don't have to dream up a whole new part for him, like, cause I've had teachers, say like, I have this male dancer, but I only have female parts. You don't have to have a female or male part in a dance. I mean, unless it's specifically maybe about giving birth, but even then, like, you know, so it's like you can have men in roles that are female, whatever that means in particular, so you don't have to dream up something new for the male dancers. And so I feel like this is going to open up a lot more people. We have a much larger selection of students to choose from if we're being more inclusive, if we're bringing the men into the dance, if we're bringing non-binary and other queer people into the dance, and being open to, like maybe that particular dancer presents really femininely in class, but they want to dance as a man on stage. Let them do that, or vice versa. They may present masculinely in class, but they want to do the whole, female, like, Dina cups and full skirt and all that, and let them. And just being more inclusive is going to help with bringing more people into the dance. And once you get people in, they're going to love this dance so much that they'll stay, because this dance is one of those most amazing things that has ever happened to me. And I know a lot of other I get like emotional about it. I know a lot of other dancers do, because it's like how much this dance means to all of us. And I know we want to share it so bad with people. And so we need to bring more people in. And to do that, we need to be more inclusive. We need to walk the talk with being inclusive and being non-appropriative and all that. And I think that would really, really help the dance economy in general.
Yeah, like, thank you. I only have 2 words in my mind. Thank you for mentioning all of that and for being so crystalline about that. Like, seriously, I think this is so hugely important, what everything that you said. And I just want to add a little bit of what I have in my mind, because I didn't want to interrupt you. I was like, okay, I want to say this, this. So I have this in my mind. I just wanted to say that I am a huge fan of a lot of men in the Raksharki and belly dance community. I just love them, and they are not dancing masculine. They're just male dancers, and they're just dancing, and they are amazing. They, like, from Japan to Argentina, there's such a wide variety, and they are incredible, and their technique is outstanding, and they are moving just like what they say to you, oh, it's just because you were born. That's not true. They can move even better than I wouldn't say better than a female body, you know. They're just amazing. There's no differentiation here. It's just a body. It's just a dancing body. And what also comes to my mind, as you probably know, you mentioned Bharatanatyam. So I am a lot into Indian dances, because part of my academic studies, it's about Indian dances. So I'm really into this fusion with Indian dances. And in Bharatanatyam, so in Indian classical dance, there is no differentiation about a female dancer or a male dancer. If you are a dancer, you are a dancer. So you will, especially in the theater dance, because there is a lot of theatrical aspects in the Indian classical dance. If you are in the theatrical part of dance, you will be embodying a female or a male, a character, or a demon, or a god, or a goddess, or whatever. Either if you're a male or female, it doesn't matter, because you have all those characters inside of you. You just need to find those and just, express them. It doesn't matter if you were born this or that, it's
Absolutely, yeah.
completely not essential to what you want to do. And yeah, I think I had a lot of that, a lot more others thing in my mind, but they're probably gone. But anyways, what you mentioned is super, super cool. I just want to say that again, non-appropriative and more inclusive. I think these two pillars are like the way to go to bring back energy and to bring back people to classes, because what's happening in the US that you mentioned, it's also here in Europe different, but also here I can see that there was a really big shift after the pandemic. But what I feel from the US, it's even more, because I remember that in the US there were these huge festivals and a lot of weekends of workshops, and now I see on Facebook or Instagram and I don't see them anymore. So I know it's something that it's happening all over. So thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I to completely change the subject, the other kitty decided to come out of bed. So this is Dea, but we call her the potato because she looks like a potato.
Yeah, it's her shape. So.
Yes, so 9 a.m. So yeah, it's time to be out of bed.
It's time for breakfast.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much. Are you moving to Portugal?
Yes.
Oh my God.
So with not to get too political, but with the recent election and the way things are going for trans people, it might soon be illegal for me to be transgender in the US.
Yeah.
So I've been working towards it actually longer than just since November, because I kind of saw how things were going, the writing on the wall sort of thing. So I'm going to be in Portugal at the end of February, so like beginning of March, and I'm going to be there for at least 2 months, and in hopes that I can find a job or get to the point where I can support myself with dance there. And then I'm looking to stay there forever, hopefully.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of places I've been looking. Portugal happens to have the kind of the quickest pathway to citizenship. So they're 5 years. So Portugal. So, but I am in contact with some dancers there, and I'm hoping to, be able to travel around Europe. So I'll be coming to Europe and hoping to stay in Europe from now on. So
That's so cool. So we're probably gonna meet on this side of the world very
yeah,
soon.
I'd love to.
Yeah. All right. So I'm very grateful for this conversation with you, and thank you so much for all that you said. I think it's going to be super inspiring for all the whole of us of the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely to talk to you and meet you. So I'm so glad you reached out.
All right, and let's meet soon and then soon wherever we are in the world.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes.
Thank you so much for being with us, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation, that you found it valuable and inspiring for your dance journey. If you loved this video and would love to see more, I invite you to subscribe to my channel, because every week I share more videos, tutorials, and inspiration for your dance journey. I'll see you next week for the next one.